What is up, guys? Time for another Skybox sessions. Today I wanted to go over more of a mid-round focus. So we're going to be skipping most of the kind of initial build-up to the gun rounds here between Complexity and Na'vi, just to make sure that we don't spend too much time on that and we spend more time around the mid-round decision-making. And that way we can kind of get through the demo more quickly. Yes, it is Mirage again. We'll be having some train and nuke and overpass coming up next. I've been neglecting those maps a little bit. So if we go into the free lick here, this is the first gun round between these two teams. We've already seen a demo where I went over the default on Mirage of Complexity quite thoroughly. And so here what we're going to see is a light investment as we're typically used to seeing here, 2 players only from Complexity. And what we're dealing with here is not a huge investment. Now, Config is going to be able to get a pick here on Simple as his teammate dies. And that's pretty epic because they just lost Poison just a moment before that. And whilst this has been going on as well, and this is a fast moving round, by the way, because we had some mid aggression from the CTs, we actually have a lot of pressure here with a very aggressive smoke here from Blame F. So he's really occupying the attention of the 2B players, which creates a timing window whilst they're kind of worried about, what is behind this. Because during this timing, when this pick has happened, now that because we're entering the mid round, there is this timing where on a map like Mirage, what happens is no matter what the investment to middle, either they have a lot of players and they take some positions, and then they are like, okay, cool, we've done that. We're not going to push all those players through these middle positions. What instead will happen is there'll be a period of rotation, a timing window where the T side is setting up for their next attack onto a bomb site typically. So this is kind of the area we're in now. Although it's 1:37 on the clock as of right now, normally when we get to this phase of the round, because this round was particularly aggressive, this timing is much quicker, but normally it's going to be around 1 minute to 1:10, something in that region, maybe a little bit slower, but something around there typically. But so, we have this window, as I mentioned, where now Config is going to be rotating all the way to join his players on A ramp and Palace. And because of the pressure on the B apartments, effectively Blame F is occupying the attention and delaying any possible rotation from these 2 players. Because especially with this very forward smoke, there could really be anything behind this. And they kind of have to, again, respect that there could be a rotation through to the B apartments. Although it would be more unlikely in this case, that is a possibility. So if we press play, we're going to start to see this rotation. And one thing I want to go over is Oboe and how he's clearing some of these positions quickly. So again, Skybox currently doesn't differentiate between the scoped guns. So if it's a Krieg or an Orb, it's going to look the same when scoped in. So he's holding a Krieg right now. So first of all, he checks the bench, then he checks the stairs, then he checks triple, then he checks the other side of triple and CT, one side of default, other side of default, the boost spot on default, and then he checks the under balk and just kind of highlighting that because he's walking out and checking these positions, and that's kind of roughly the order you want to do it. And he makes sure to have a pretty late check onto this position, a hard check here onto the under balk, just because what is more likely in this scenario is for the CTs to be playing passively on the bomb sites and wanting for you to commit deeper before actually engaging, which means that instead of actually being in a position where the CT is going to be peaking aggressively around here or around here, with lines of sight through here, it is actually more likely in this scenario that the CT, because they've already lost one towards the A bomb site, would play deeper in this position, trying to commit the Ts further out and delay more time until they're discovered as well. Again, just a quick note for the Ts in this from this perspective. Once you get a pick on an A player, so they know they killed Simple, who was pressuring from the connector position, you can logically assume that's going to be one of the A players dead. So typically that will leave 2 players towards the A bomb site. Now, if we're in a typical rounds, we're going to see a player towards the catwalk position as well as site. So there is this potential that there can be pressure from catwalk, but effectively you're not dealing with more than 2 players on the site, and it's unlikely that you'll be dealing with more than 1 on site proper, meaning that these positions are available to be dealt with utility if necessary, and you can kind of try to double team this guy. And who, wherever this player is playing, whether it's CT, whether it's under bulk, whether it's side boxes or triple, whatever it is, there should be a pretty good engagement for the T side at this point. And this player's job is really just to delay and try to isolate players with good peaks, and try to peak as late as possible. And that's the goal, but it can be quite difficult. You see Config's lining up a smoke here. So what he's doing is, with this window smoke, is he's kind of, again, keeping that pressure. So this is really cool, because whilst there's this timing window where the T's will, they'll take that initial control, and then we move into the mid round, we move into the second phase where they're going to set up an attack to a site. And typically that will follow a rotation like this, or a rotation like this, or a rotation, like that. Typically that's what's going to be happening. So he's going to throw this smoke out whilst he is on the rotation. And this is going to create questions. Okay, this is going to get smoked off. That means that the CTs cannot see, if they try to peek for info from this position, they cannot see mid whatsoever. They'd have to commit someone deeper towards catwalk or towards the connector position to do that. So that buys a little bit of extra time here in terms of these two players rotating, and also these two players kind of understanding what's going to be happening. So as we see the round progress, Blameth actually gets a lurk kill onto Perfecto, which really sucks for the T side, really using that smoke to good effect. Blameth, by the way, if you're a lurk, if you like to lurk, he's one of the best guys to watch in terms of understanding how to lurk. He's very good at the hard lurk. Now, okay, this is very interesting. So let's look at how this round changes. So Oboe will go down to Boomich. Great flash coming through. Really cool timing. Again, these guys have been silent up until this point. So that's an info flash so that Boomich can peek safely, because they know at this timing that the T's can be pushed. This is kind of a brilliant timing for an info play, and that actually allows Boomich to get a kill. He does take some damage, but he's able to safely escape. Now this changes everything in the mid-round situation, because if we assess the situation now that Perfecto is about to go down as the smoke disappears, Blameth wins the duel there. And then we get the rotation coming through. And this makes a lot of sense, because Boomich should shut down a ramp. In shutting down a ramp, that is the A side completely done. That even if they have someone in Palace, Rush could try to move out of Palace, but it's such a disadvantageous duel that it's just not even worth thinking about. This is one of those decisions where it's not even a decision insofar as one option is significantly better. You've got a player that's got some level of control towards the B bomb site versus his teammates who have nothing towards the A site. So they'll make a fast rotation. And because this round has been so fast, and this is really cool, we're seeing that Boomich hears the footsteps through Palace, so he already knows what's happening, and Na'Vi already know what's happening. And in fact, Boomich might even catch him here, and he will die. So now this is really interesting, because there becomes this option, especially because Blameth kills Flamey and Rush kills Boomich, that they could go back. But obviously at this point, in fact, and that's what they do, there's so many options to win the round at this point. But very interesting situation. Obviously, there's not too much Electronic can do. He'll lose the duel against Blameth once again. So let's go into the next gun rounds, into the following round. So let's see what the timings are like. Okay, so there's a pretty different one. We get more of a commitment into mid. We get 3 smokes here from the T's. Now, these smokes suggest a B split oftentimes. When you get this fast cat smoke, it's very, very scary for the CTs. So we'll see how the reaction is from the CTs in this situation. So Flamey he's got the check on this position. So that's okay. He can kind of see what's happening there, and he has options to delay. He's got Molotov and a smoke. So they're just trying to keep tabs on things. And the cool thing about this situation for the CT side is that they've invested way less utility. 1 smoke on connector, and nothing yet from Flamey, as he's yet to see anything. Rush is going to Palace, as he typically has been in these rounds. And Oboe is actually pressuring from the underpass area. So interestingly, he's actually Molotov this. Did he Molotov this? That's quite unusual, actually, to see a Molotov get tossed there. And they must have had a call that someone could have pushed that position, or they suspected that could have happened for him to Molotov that, because that's quite an investment on not being peaked in that during that timing. Obviously, Flamey is on catwalk. So anyway, so now we're into we're getting into the mid round position now. Let's see how this turns out. Okay, so Flamey is not able to stop them from getting ladder in control. Config's in ladder room. Now, so there's, okay, so we're about to hit the mid round. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is about the mid rounds here. Around 1 to 110, as we mentioned. The team has mid control. Complexity is mid control. They've got config in ladder room. And with a player in ladder room, there's all kinds of stuff you can do from that. There's a lot of, there's a lot of potential for lurks. Config can obviously take, really good angles here. He's a great aimer. He's got the AK, and his teammates are deciding to rotate back. Obviously, there's a resmoke here on CT ramp, or CT ramp, sorry, A ramp. What am I saying? And from this position, there is a variety of options. Complexity could actually try to take connector control and actually try to push towards the A site with connector control. This is one option. Now, when you're in a situation like this position is one of the most dangerous ones, and it has to be. This is like what you're in high alert for. When you peek this, you're pre-aiming you're pre-aiming Boomich's position, the ticket peak. It's the only dangerous position from this bottom peak here because obviously he has that elevated angle, so he would be the first player you would see anyway. So, but that's the position that's the most important to shut down if you just do decide to go for a play with numbers through connector into the A sites. Now, one of the reasons why this is an interesting round to pull off sometimes is because, as we can see, because Na'Vi have lost so much position in middle, they've actually opted for a fairly passive setup. So they're only really holding onto the site, window, and, well, let me draw it in a better way. So they just have this, basically. The rest is for the T's. You can see it's almost like a line. And the rotations would mostly be through CT. And if the round slows down anymore, what we'll probably see is they'll put one person in CT to kind of cover the rat hole position and have a faster rotation towards market because they'll have less information, so there'll be less certainty. And then they'll probably just leave Boomich in jungle. And I mean, one thing that some teams would actually do is to maybe have one guy actually in the site. So you have a better defense if they do try to come up connector, but jungle can also work in this position as well. This is just like a very safe response from Na'Vi to play back like this. And we'll see how Complexity decide to develop the round here. As I mentioned, there's lots of options. Config actually smoking a molly that was thrown at him so he can hold onto his position. And Obo is now pressuring towards the B apartments. He has that deep position. So we're going to see the rotation through the B apps, and they'll have the B split options with config coming through. They might leave blame to actually lurk in middle. Indeed, that seems to be the case. Now you can see that Na'Vi have a really good read for this. Now we can go back and we can try to understand, why would they have a good read for this? Because this is really important. Because obviously attacking the B bomb site, if there's like 3 players there, is extremely hard. And so in going for a B split or a B play of any kind, you really want to avoid that situation having from happening. Now, in review of this, I can't really see anything that Na'Vi could say, hey, you know what? We reckon it's going to be B. We saw this big tell that it's going to be B. So what actually this setup really is this is it's a light, I would say it's not a heavy gamble. It's a light gamble setup that's totally fine to make. And it's because this bomb site is much easier to retake. They've got retake positions. As long as they hold onto jungle, they hold onto CT, they can retake this bomb site. They've done a decent job on holding onto utility. So they have a couple of incendiaries. They've got some flashbangs and so on and HE. So they have some good retake options with the utility. So they're focusing on playing retake on the A bomb site. The weakest site is typically going to be the B bomb site if there's going to be a full out attack. So that's most likely why they're doing this. And so we can see this play out as we see an extra player rotated through. Simple's right there. And the B split has been set up. You can see that there's the top con smoke to make things a little bit harder to detect, also to cover the T players moving up catwalk. So there's no line of sight like that. Blame also is trying to prevent these 2 players from doing much. You have to excuse me, I was very sick yesterday, so my voice is a bit weird. Right, so lots of trades here, but still 2 players on the site. Nice right angle, off angle for Flamey. It's right eye peek off angle. So this is a pretty strong one. So they're peeking left eye into the right eye peek, so it's a strong position, as long as you're not worrying about people backstabbing you. And of course, Perfecto will go down, but Simple's there with an AWP. Good luck. Have fun. And Blameoff is left to lurk. So this is a pretty awesome situation because again, I want to go over this because this is something that if you're playing Team Counter Strike, you can think about trying, and that is just like trying to perfect this kind of a setup. Like nothing that is happening really matters to Na'Vi. They're basically playing a default defensive and passive setup. So there's nothing crazy about this. They voided the A bomb site completely. This is from the beginning kind of an A retake setup, right from the beginning. They've got nobody committed towards the site, towards Palace, towards A ramp, nothing like that, and they go for the gamble stack towards B with, well, it's not really a stack per se, but it's an extra player. They cheat an extra player towards B as a gamble, playing retake on A. Super basic, covers so many options. Now, there's a couple of things that this could be potentially weak towards, and that would be fast hits on the A bomb site, fast set pieces, or set pieces in general on the A site, splits on the A site, stuff like that. Could be, obviously, it could have some weakness towards, insofar as they would likely get a bomb plant because it's not designed to deal with stopping a team from getting a plant. But what it is really well designed towards is, one, holding onto utility so you can play retake. Two, preventing the other team from attacking the weakest site on the map, which is the B-bomb site, where it's extremely difficult to retake. That's what I mean by when I say weak. It's very hard to retake, I should say. And they just let you do whatever you do. Now, interestingly, if they have a read that complexities defaults don't often end up in early or fast play towards the A bomb site or fast pressure, then they can get away with stuff like this. Anyway, we'll go into the next rounds. Okay, next gun round. Alrighty. Okay, so next gun rounds. Let's speed it forwards a little bit. So we get the mid take coming in, a bit more pressure from the CT side. Simple just got a pick. Where do you get that pick? Okay, so Simple got that pick through the smoke. Is likely a gap or something, maybe. So initial pick from Simple. This does change things a little bit because obviously the mid presence is a little bit weaker. They had Blame coming through underpass, which is pretty useful. We've described why that is in previous videos. And Config's trying to take control of connector. Now, what would be really good is a top con smoke here, and they could decide to maybe molly other side and or pop flash in. There's the top con smoke. So that makes a lot of sense. They can't really do anything to take this position otherwise. Boom it, you dirty dog. Look at that. He just got I think that's a complete, let's just check it out. Check it out. He's on top of ticket, I think. Oh. Excuse me. There we go. So he just decides, this is just brilliant, really. This is just a free spray. And he actually gets the kill out of it. So that's not bad, is it? Very nicely done by Boomich. That's obviously not always going to happen, but that's very nice. And that changes the situation from, like, so much. So in this situation, you're in a 3v5 on the T side. It's really hard to figure out how to best play these spots because finding an advantage is nigh on impossible. You have to get very lucky to genuinely find an advantage. You're playing from a position of pretty heavy disadvantage. You can't really split the defense effectively because you have too few numbers. You're lacking some utility, although they fortunately do have a good chunk left, although I don't know if I can see any smokes. So those flashbangs, looks like flashbangs to me. Indeed, they don't have any smokes left. So given that they don't have any smokes left, there's the only smoke, they might be in a position where they actually just want to try to take connector and just try to split now. There's when you're in a situation like this, you have two options really, generally speaking. Because the longer you wait, the more advantage the CTs will generally have because they'll get more information, they'll have better setups, and so they can make better decisions. So you want to try to act quickly if you can. And so you have to think about, a couple of things. One, where are the bulk of my players? What map control do I have right now? So obviously right now I've got mid and I've got A ramp. And the bulk of my players are in mid. So you have to basically try to create an attack through this position. There's really no other option at this point. If they were to try to go B, it would just fail dramatically because there's just they don't have any map control towards the apartments. So there could be CTs basically anywhere holding any positions. If they try to go up catwalk, well, the smoke is going to run out by that point, leaving a possibility that the CTs could get picks. And if there is an angle held here that they can't break, they'll get stuck and they'll get sandwiched and they will die. They could try to boost into this position, but given that there are 5 CTs left, that will be absolutely 100% covered for. And the fact that, and another thing as well here is that because they have three players, what you want is the element of surprise. You want to attack with the least notice possible. So if you so ultimately, like, what would be great is getting as close to the smoke and then just bursting through with the split as quickly as possible. That's the best option here. And so again, assess what map control you have and assess where your players are and just go for it and just hope for the best. So we'll see if something interesting happens here. So indeed, they'll go for a split into the sites. And you can see that they'll be able to make some headway here. A defensive smoke in this position is interesting. And this is quite cool because in a 4v3, as the kills made towards electronic, what was that? Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So they got a guess correctly with the Molotov. Very well done. This is going to buy them, buy the CTs lots of time to bring players in for a retake. But now it's getting interesting because this fight is everything between Flamey and between the players coming out of jungle. This fight is absolutely everything. Flamey picks up the first, and now there's one more player. And look at this. He can just hold this position because... Okay, actually, no, someone's not there. But he can just try to hold this position for a really long time and try to force Blamef to go and kill him. Blamef does not have a Molotov. He can HE that position. Okay, so Flamey decides to go for the peak. My point was going to be that Flamey can just really try to delay this as long as possible. However... There is a point at which if Blamef does walk up, he begins to get the advantage in the fight because of the way the angles work. The right eye versus the left eye, and Flamey's stuck in the corner. So Flamey does have to eventually peek, but he didn't jiggle. He actually just went for the swing. So I was going to make the point that he could potentially try to delay, but he just goes for the fight, which I think is absolutely fair enough. I think that makes a lot of sense. And flashbang over towards CT to allow Rush to try to cross towards this position. But at this point, they've really got absolutely nothing to work with. Another flashbang, planting open with Rush covering. And you can see how Na'Vi are playing this extremely safe. Simple as covering this line to the site. What this also does is it allows them to deduce exactly where the T's are. Perfecto gets the first kill. Rush has no HP. He goes down as well. So, right. Let's look at another round quickly before we end this video in particular. And I'll make some more ones. I just wanted to have some smaller videos because they end up being like so long. Right. This is a buy round, but I don't have a super sick buy. Let's get something more interesting. Okay. So full buy rounds here. Okie dokie. So skipping through, it's the same three smokes. Na'Vi with an aggressive setup here. We don't see that super passive retake setup. And Flamey with the pick from window. I'm trying to get to the spot where the mid round happens. Okay, it's around about now, but Rush loses the duel there towards a ramp. So this is basically the mid round situation. It's where both teams are like, cool, got our opening picks, got our opening map control. Let's go towards the second phase of the round now. And again, the similar... Oh, shit, I accidentally skipped ahead a lot. A similar principle applies insofar as where do we have players here? Obviously, you're thinking about a B split right now because you've got a guy deep in apartments. You can try to pressure the window room, but ultimately here, B split makes the most sense given the logic that I showed previously. However, then boom, they lose their apps player. Obviously, it changes everything. They still have the con smoke, so they're going to use it. And again, it's just there's just no real options in this case. So maybe I'll pick up another round. We'll see if they can do anything here, but I don't think that they can. Yeah, there's nothing really to be done here. Okay. Pretty cookie cutter stuff. We can go to some Na'Vi rounds. Na'Vi's decision-making mid-round is always something that's been fascinating to me. Right. So not this round. Let's go to one where they have a better buy. I see one full gun round. Okay, one full gun round from Na'Vi, then we'll finish the video here. Okay, so let's see how they develop it. So you can see like similar opening, not that extra smoke on catwalk coming in. We get just the two smokes. It's a pretty standard default. This looks like, from the get-go, this looks like it's going to be an A split. So they'll probably leave one or two players in connector and then rotate everyone back for an A split. That's what I'm seeing right now. Let's see how it plays out. In come the extra players. Oh, actually, so I misread that because I thought there was one player towards Palace, which my bad. But they actually have an extra player towards the Palace, sorry, the B apartments position. My brain is a bit foggy still. from being sick yesterday. Okay, so we're going to get a B split coming through. Let's just go to the beginning again. Okay, no, we did have someone in Palace. Okay, so I didn't. Okay, so usually with this kind of a setup, what tends to happen is this is like a setup. You can see that both players could go down to mid or just one. So usually it's like a big investment to take mid control and then to take connector control. You know, we'll get the connector smoke and everything, and then what happens is because they'll have such a strong control here, normally teams will actually fall back to go for the A split. That's the kind of default way that then tends to play out. But in this situation, what's really cool about this is that Flamey was able to kind of check for any early aggression towards Palace, sees none, knows that there's a smoke here, so it's very unlikely that position will be pushed, meaning that knowing that neither of these positions has been pushed, the CTs have no info there. Flamey can then rotate back, and now this round could, like in terms of Na'Vi understanding what do our opponents think is happening? You know, if Na'Vi asks that question, right now their opponents, they can reasonably assess that their opponents can't really know at all what's happening. So that leads them into this rotation back towards B. Now all they have is Perfecto playing really passive, trying to keep a check on if someone pushes this, and then Config falls back because he got tagged up there by the passive hold. Again, this doesn't tell Complexity anything. Complexity are in a really bad situation here right now because a B play is going to be coming in and they don't have any information really to understand that this is happening, because as we say, we're still in a spot in terms of timing that would indicate that Na'Vi could still be setting up, they could still be deciding where they're going to go, but we can see that Na'Vi have already decided that, and not only have they already decided where they're going to go, they've already almost got everyone in position to attack. So that, in that sense, when we're talking about timing windows, there's a really huge timing window here for Na'Vi to attack this B bomb site without any assistance coming in from the A players. And you can see we even have Obo moving towards market right now, leaving just one player on the site, and there's no one playing catwalk. So if an attack on B comes in, that'd be very dangerous. However, that is not to be the case. Oh, sorry, that's not to be the case immediately, as I was worried about for the sake of complexity. But it does come in with a 3-man split from the catwalk position. But again, look at how this they've created this split of the CTs on the map. This is brilliant from Na'Vi, actually. So again, complexity not really able to read this situation very well because of the way that Na'Vi have used their utility and everything, and just the default setups from the CTs. They were unlucky that they didn't have the right aggressions in the right places. Then they go and try to take A ramp, and you'd want to do this if you're suspecting an A play. You want to take this position if you can possibly get it, because if you can shut down the first players pushing through this angle, you create horrible problems for the T's. They get in a really bad position. But instead, what we get is we get the B split coming through. Oh my god! And they get the top con smoke again. These two smokes can look like it's going to be an A play eventually, of some kind. They, again, as far as complexity concerned, they could be setting up someone in this position behind the smoke, but they're already moving into the B bomb site. And you can see that the lack of information is reflected in the setup. It's extremely safe on the B bomb site in terms of we have really deep players here, and they've got deep players here. They have very, very bad options on the rotation, and they're very susceptible to getting wrecked by a lurker in either case as well. So the attack comes through, and at this point, it's just like an oh fuck moment for complexity because there's nothing that they can do at this point. They've been completely outmaneuvered. So this is a really great round. I want to look at this one more time before we end the video, just to again really show you. Okay, how well Na'Vi played it, and also, could complexity have done something differently? One thing we have to account for in Counter-Strike is that the CTs will sometimes just choose a setup, and it's like StarCraft. Sometimes in StarCraft, if you're familiar, you can just have a build order loss. That's a concept that your opening just puts you at an inherent disadvantage to your opponent, whereby you cannot. It's such a disadvantage that you can't catch up. And this. You could argue that this is a similar version of that. It does happen in CS in a very extreme way sometimes, and I try to point that out in the casts that I do. But here, we can see that this is somewhat of the case, and it's partially because they don't have any mid control. They don't have anyone playing forward towards the A positions. And Na'Vi actually trigger this pretty quickly, and we don't get a late rounds info play towards middle either, or the mid round info play towards middle either. So far, this is really very straight up. And we saw even Na'Vi running a similar setup where all their players were kind of occupying, behind this line towards the, the C, behind the line towards the CT side of things. And they were playing retake on the A bomb site. Now, look at this situation, because if Complexity with no information would have instead played the 3-man retake on the B bomb site, played a retake by having 3 players on B and going more passive towards these positions, that would have been a better response. What they've done here is they've gambled towards A. They've committed 2 players towards A. Now, if the T's did decide to go for a heavy play into A, this 2-man setup could just kill it completely. It's a very strong kind of counterplay to an A split of any kind, especially because often the bomb will come from this area. And if there's a couple, like 2 or 3 players coming from connector and you kill the bomber, it just completely kills the round for the T side. However, what happens here is because they gamble 2 players like this, they have no options to rotate towards B, and they have no options to retake towards B. And that's what happens. The B play comes in and they get wrecked. So effectively, this is just them making this decision to double down on A ramp is what kills them here. Sometimes you make that decision. Sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles, and such is the life of a Counter-Strike player and team. All right, so I think we'll end the video here for today. I might throw another one up a little bit later. I'm definitely going to be doing like 1 or 2 tomorrow as well. So stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed it, and peace for now. Catch you on the next one.